Okay, welcome back, everybody. Now we're going to start looking at some of the things in science that point possibly toward a god or gods, okay? And the first is something that sounds a little silly, but it's the fact that the universe looks like it had a single beginning. And there was a biologist, an atheist, who quipped, oh, well, the religious types had a 50-50 chance of getting it right. Well, this is really an intellectually disingenuous kind of comment, because if you take the multiverse theory seriously, or the landscape hypothesis, we could have had multiple Big Bang events. In fact, right now, a Big Bang event could have happened and the light and energy from it have just not reached us yet, right? There could be Big Bangs happening nonstop. So the fact that there was only a single Big Bang is suggestive in the fact that things that have beginnings could have been created. Doesn't mean they were. I'm not saying that this is evidence that the universe was created. I'm just saying that a single origin point hints at the possibility of a creation event. The next one is that our universe is understandable. It could have been total nonsense. It could have been so disconjointed that we had no ability to understand what was going on at any time. There's a great book called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and it talks about things popping in and out of existence, and the answer to the question of life being the number 54. It could have been nonsensical just like that book. Okay, and so we could have lacked the capacity to understand our reality because the reality was just so nonsensical. But we live in an understandable reality. Okay, now the counterbalance to that, there is one, is that we understand this reality because we came into existence in this reality. And to that I say, well, that's true, that's a fair point, but we could also understand it because it was understandable. That we could have come into existence to understand this reality because we were in this reality doesn't exclude the possibility that the reality was intended to be intelligible, right? They're not mutually exclusive statements. In fact, they can both coexist at the same time. The reality could have been made for us, and we came to understand the reality because we came into existence in the reality. So, that's not a big own or anything by a line of thought or argumentation. Now, the next one kind of goes along with the fact that the universe is understandable, and it stems from the fact that the universe is stable. And I don't just mean a little stable, I mean really oddly stable. So as far back as we can tell, it looks like there's no gravitational waves that caused fluctuation in the cosmic microwave background radiation. It looks like there's no compression places where galaxies were way more dense in certain places than others. It looks like things like the forces of gravity, the speed of light, the strong and weak nuclear force, and the electromagnetic force have been stable pretty well since a few moments after the Big Bang. Okay, what does that mean? It means that we're able to overlay mathematics on top of the universe, something that's theoretically a human-made language, mathematics. It exists. Calculus was created to describe reality. We can put it on top of this universe, and because the universe is so stable, it actually works. What does that mean? Why do you care? Well, it's kind of like the behavior of the universe is governed by an arithmetic logic unit, which is a computer chip that we have created to help us describe mathematical relationships. And so the stability of the universe is such that math works in this reality. And that's suggestive. That's really interesting. It works so well that it seems like it's governed by a mathematics unit. Now, the next one is that the universe looks very specific or finely tuned. It looks this way. And I believe even the most ardent of atheists would acknowledge this, that the universe is very specific. If the forces of gravity, the strong and weak nuclear force, the electromagnetic force, the speed of light, or any number of other constants were even a small fraction of a degree off, the universe wouldn't exist as we know it. And so it's kind of like if you're walking down the street and there's a fence post and you find a turtle stuck on top of it, like it was put there. Well, could that have happened naturally? Well, yeah, maybe a windstorm picked up the turtle and it happened to just plop down right there on the top of a fence post and get stuck. Okay, could it have happened? Yeah, but you also wouldn't be wrong to ask yourself, well, gee, maybe someone put it there. And finding the finely tuned universe the way that it is, kind of made perfect for us, is like finding a turtle on a fence post. And so again, examples include gravity, strong and weak nuclear force, the electromagnetic force, inertial mass, speed of light, behavior of water. This molecule, it is amazing, the duality of quantum states and light, and so on and so forth. One group of scientists has postulated as many as 100 different factors that all have to be perfectly aligned for this universe and human life in particular to come into existence. And the more that it's investigated, the larger that number gets. Certainly no less than 10, but as many as 100. Now, this one's a little hard to explain, but I'm going to do my best. And it's the idea that the whole of the universe is greater than the sum of its parts. Okay, so what on earth am I talking about? Well, if you look at the very basis of reality that we actually know about and can observe, again, there could be more below the Planck scale, so there could be something smaller than what these are. You have your quarks, your leptons, your gluons, and your three fields, and your Higgs boson particle. Okay, these are the quantum particles that then combine in various ratios to make a bunch of things. But in particular, most of the observable universe is made of protons, neutrons, and electrons, which are made of these subatomic particles, these quantum particles. Okay, now protons, neutrons, and electrons don't behave like any one of these. They're an amalgam, right? The attributes of these come together to create emergent brand new properties in your atoms. Well, those atoms then combine to create the 115 or so known elements. And there might be more elements, but that's about where we're at right now. And so, again, you've kind of gone from a wide bottom through a narrow path, the protons, neutrons, and electrons. And again, other things that can exist but are not observed in nature in any significant amount, to 115 elements. Well, that's like 3 layers of reality there. But on the 4th layer, if you go up another layer, you get macromolecules. So basically, I can combine these 115 elements in as many ratios as there are atoms available to me to recombine into just about anything, right? Eventually up to you and me. And so the whole, presumably you, me, and living systems, I would say, is the height of creation, the height of reality, doesn't look anything like the quantum particles from which it came. The end result is greater than just adding up the number of the parts. Okay, there's more possibilities than just the fundamental particles at play, and that's suggestive because that requires, well, it looks like it will require foresight. Okay, and each layer is unique from the one below it, so it has emergent properties that come out and that are different and unique from each layer underneath it. Okay, and this is an example of an integrated system. Okay, if I messed with these particles way down at the bottom, none of this stuff at the top would be possible, right? If I just removed your boson particle, for example, your molecules would behave incredibly differently because they'd have no gravitational force, right? People, animals would just fly off planets. So planets might not even form. So because of this integrated system where all of the parts come together to do something, it looks like it might have been made by a mind like humans. At least a human level intelligence, given an infinite amount of time, could probably have come up with something like this. The next thing that is interesting is that life has a dual nature. It is both chemical and it's a program, which is bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. It once was thought that life was just a chemical, complex set of chemicals, until we discovered DNA and a real program, just like a computer program, inside living systems. So the idea that life came from non-life when there was only chemistry to overcome was difficult conceptually, right? The idea that you now have to have your precursor chemistry and then also write a program at the same time to get your first cell, I mean, that's really stretching the ability of someone to believe in the unlikely, right? And I know from my personal experience that programming comes from humans, right? We write computer programs all the time. I've even taken a comp sci class. I wrote a couple of computer programs myself. Not easy to do. The idea that it would write itself, right, because this is before the first cell exists even, is, well, not plausible. Is it possible? Well, yeah, it's possible in the same way that a black hole could emerge in the center of the Earth right now and just suck us all in. Like, it's possible, anything is possible. But it's not possible in any kind of realistic sense that a program is going to write itself. And this means that, well, so let me give you an illustrative example of what I mean by programming. The programming in life is highly integrated. And so this is a simple bacterial genome. And all of these little lines are little programs within this genome that all have to work together to give a bacteria the ability to live, to function, to reproduce, to acquire energy, to respond to stimulus, all of the things that make it alive. Okay, it's not simple. And this is from just a single-celled organism, a prokaryote, not a eukaryote. If you up the ante a little bit, they were trying to study gene networks in humans. I believe this is a human study. And this is the RNAs produced by the activation of various gene networks. You can see that it's very integrated, it's interconnected, it's interdependent, and it allows for very finely tuned responses within biological systems. This is not a chance organization of things, right? You have to have foresight to make it in a system like this. This is an engineering problem that you have to overcome. And as far as I can tell, mutation and selection are not up to the challenge. Some third mechanism needs to exist, or I think science actually has it wrong when it comes to evolution. So, is this proof that God or gods exist? No, this is not proof that God or God exists. This is anecdotal evidence. This is me carefully picking and choosing my evidence to support my argument. Because again, science is not trying to prove or disprove the existence of God. There are just things that have happened to be discovered in science that fit very well with the idea of a God or gods, right? That's all that I'm trying to point out here. And certainly when it comes to scientism, there are things that science doesn't know. And there are things that science is pointing to that are, well, maybe beyond the material. It's a fair question, at least, to ask. So I've been playing with a thought experiment, and sorry for the bell here, to try to explain a possible or plausible God or gods from a purely materialistic standpoint. And here's what I've come up with. And again, this is just a thought experiment. I know from my studies of biology that all you need to have thought, human thought, is going to be energy, because our neurons fire little electrical signals, okay, and order. Our brain has a very specific structure. And so it is thought by scientists, and I don't know that I completely agree with this, that the totality or the entirety of you as a person is summed up in the brain, in the electrical discharges and the patterns of your neural connections, and that creates a mind. So all that is needed for order, or for a mind, is ordered energy. And because of the law of conservation of mass and energy, energy can be neither created nor destroyed. Energy can be eternal. And so all you have to assume to be able to believe in a God is that energy, which is eternal, has order to it, and therefore can have a mind. Which honestly is not a big assumption. And I went through this thought experiment because there were some atheists who have said that, well, whatever mind created this universe would have had to have been much more complex than this universe to be able to create it. And no, if you have a mind that with even a human level intelligence and an infinite amount of time, that mind can accomplish potentially anything. And because energy can be eternal, God can be eternal, the mind can be eternal, and there you have a purely materialistic explanation or plausible situation where a God could exist, right? In a materialistic sense. So what I'm saying here is that if you are willing to acknowledge the fundamental limitations of science and scientific knowledge, and you want to consider the possibility of a God or gods, it is not intellectually weak, shortcoming. There's no failing or shortcoming of your intellect. There's enough in science to allow for this type of thought and inquiry without any difficulties, right? You can believe in God and be a scientist at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. It was the late Stephen Jay Gould, who was an atheist, if I recall correctly, who said that science and religion occupy non-overlapping magisteria. A very fancy way of saying that science and theology don't have much to say to each other. And for the most part, I agree, except for scientists who happen to be atheists, who try to manipulate scientific knowledge or carefully pick and choose their evidence to support their arguments to make science against God. And science in and of itself doesn't really deal with God or God's existence. And there's enough accidental evidence that has been found that hints at a mind behind reality, so that choosing to believe in God is a very plausible, intellectually viable path. So, okay, oh, here's another bell. Give me just a sec. I'll let it pass because I'm almost done here. I don't want to start over. Hope you'll forgive me. To close this discussion out, I have known a lot of people who really believe they know the truth, right? And the more ardently they believe that they know the truth, the more aggressive and vicious and cruel and unkind they tend to be. And so, being a theist and a Christian, I'm happy that I can't prove, like 100% prove, that God and, say, Jesus exist. Because if I were able to overtly prove it, beyond a shadow of a doubt, in an objective sense, I would be tempted to do what those people who think they know the truth do, and be intellectually abusive with my knowledge. Instead of attempting to share what I believe with love and humility and grace in the hopes that people will join me in creating goodness through long suffering, self-sacrifice, and the forgiveness of Jesus Christ, instead of doing those things that would lure people to what I believe through love and generosity of spirit, I would be beating them with a cudgel intellectually until they agree with me. And nothing about what I understand God to be and my Lord Jesus to be says that that would be how he wants me to do it anyway. So I'm really glad that I don't have that, because I would be severely tempted to approach spreading what I believe that way. And I hope I never get to the point where I truly believe that I know the truth, because I think everyone needs to search out their own faith with fear and trembling. And I think things were designed that way for a reason, because love is greater than knowledge, in my opinion. And I want to have people join me in what I believe because I love them well. So that's my thought. Thank you so much for listening. And I believe this is the last lecture for today. Thank you.